In the secret societies of old, and even today, after an intense period of preparation, fasting, meditation and ritual, we would pass through a rite of passage, after which we would know that we are initiates, adepts, but we are ordinary people. How do we know when we've passed through a rite of passage? How do we know that we're an initiate or an adept? That's the question that's been the theme of our gathering together, and it continues. But perhaps it can be explained in esoterically technical terms what it is that's been happening. We've taken perceptions from the sensual, the aesthetic, and the transcendent levels of mind, and brought them to the subtle levels of body, speech, and mind. The body of appearances, the speech of vibrations, and the mind of awareness, from where those perceptions have passed down the columns at the side of the spine, subjective, objective, male, female, from where they rise up the central column of pure mind to emerge as our thoughts and our deeds. In a time long ago, in the great kingdom that was Sri Lanka at that time, the king was about to make his transition. So he consulted all the court astrologers, and they advised that the second son of the king was he who would continue the prosperity of his kingdom. But the second son of the king had no heart to take over this role. Deep in his being, the only longing was to become a yogin. He detested the pomp and ceremony of the palace. He abhorred seeing the great encrusted jewelry, accoutrements that filled that place. And so he decided to escape, to seek his goal. But he hadn't gotten very far when he was accosted by the courtiers of the king and bound in golden chains and taken back into the palace. But he was able to bribe his guards with gold and gems. And that evening, dressed in rags, accompanied by only one courtier, he made his escape from the palace. They traveled far, and after some time, when they came to the gates of a very great city, he paid his courtier well and told him to return from whence he came. The prince entered this great city and immediately sought out a number of dakinis, so that he may learn the ways of the feminine. After which he travelled great distance to come to the river Ganges, where, under the tutelage of great sages, he learned the ways of the Tantra. Travelling once more, he arrived at a city where, as had always been during these years of travelling, alms were given to him easily. His noble bearing and his courtly ways brought awe to many, and his begging bowl was never empty. But in this city he found himself drawn to a particular tavern, and this tavern, as it happened, was also a brothel. In that brothel there was a prostitute who was an incarnation of a great Dakini goddess. He recognized her immediately, and he made bowing obeisances to her. She gazed fixedly at him, reading his heart, and said, "I see that the 4 channels of your mind have been purified, but you have a knot of arrogance in your heart." After this, the Dakini filled his begging bowl with putrid slop and sent him on his way. But outside the door of the tavern, the prince threw the contents of his begging bowl in the gutter. The Dakini, who was watching, said, "How do you think one who still has discrimination can reach nirvana?" The prince was mortified. Could it be that he still had in his heart, from his days in the palace, that arrogance, that judgment? And realizing that if it was so, he would never attain his goal, he took himself to the side of the ocean, where the fishermen hauled in their nets filled with fish, and he became that which was called the fish gut eater, because he demanded that he only be given the entrails of the fish caught by the fishermen. They called him Luipa, the fish gut eater. But to him, the entrails of the fish became the nectar which brought him to a state of absolute awareness. And after 12 long years, that awareness brought him to the realization of the fundamental emptiness of all reality. After this, Luipa travelled, bringing his learned experience to those who were ready to receive. Now, in this state that we know that we arrive at from meditation, in a word, Sat Chit Ananda, existence, knowledge, and bliss, you are invited to bring forth from that experience of taking this story, a perception, and following it through the process, this esoteric process of bringing perceptions from the sensual, the ascetic, and the transcendent levels of mind to the subtle levels of body, speech, and mind. And allow those perceptions to rise up the central column of pure mind, to be expressed and shared.